What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Shield Splitter podcast. So, let's kick things off right away and talk about this new game called Absolver. I haven't really been keeping my eye on the fighting game genre this year, but this game did catch my eye. Now, there are a few things about this game that I find very unique and interesting. I'll discuss a few, but most of them have to do with mechanics. Now, immediately, I noticed a whole rock, paper, scissors mechanic. It's a system I've been very vocal about for quite some time, but a lot of games haven't really implemented it yet. This is one of the few that does it right, Dead or Alive being the other. I'm not quite sold on the game just yet, but I am keeping my eyes peeled. Definitely something to look out for. Now, there are a few big changes the game would need to make to get me to buy it, but so far so good. I'm really liking what I'm seeing here. But one of the things I'm enjoying about the game is how the rock, paper, scissors mechanic is always working in all aspects, major systems and subsystems. You have your weapons, your dodges, your punches and your kicks, your powers, your heals, your pressure, and your spacing. All nice. All of these things are constantly working to keep a very unbalanced game very balanced. Very tricky thing to do, but they seem to have done it very well. Now, the only thing I personally need to see are more combat options. I know that what they have now might seem impressive to most, but I'm kind of a veteran, so I need to really see more. I need to see more trapping styles. Out the bando! And I really need to see more position switching options if throws are not going to be a thing in the fighting system. I totally understand it's a little too early to make judgments about the game now, but I do still need to see more. I've been at this for a while and I'm not easily impressed. Now, Absolver is a great concept, don't get me wrong, but it can just as easily be a game that kinda should have been really good, but just didn't meet the expectations that it should have. Looks really cool, has some great ideas. With a few changes here and there, it's a definite buy from me. Nah, it just needs an overhaul. It really needs an overhaul. So, moving on, let's talk about some Dark Souls. Now, this is an interesting topic for me, considering the fact that I played a pretty big part in the very beginning of the game's life. Now, for those who don't know, I was extremely vocal about several different aspects of the game and changes to certain mechanics. Keeping in mind that this was around the time that most veterans were complaining about the invasion system, about the host being able to summon too many phantoms, and of course about netcode and things like that. So one of the biggest complaints were these things called invasion farms. By using a few multiplayer items, a host could summon several phantoms to their world and use something that was called a Seed of a Giant. Now, a Seed of a Giant made enemies in the host's world hostile towards invaders. So this, stacked on top of the fact that a host would usually have several friendly phantoms to help them, it kind of made the situation impossible. Well, at least that was their opinion of the situation. I didn't necessarily agree. Now, in the past, I've named several different ways to counter that. But considering that we've had so many updates and the Seed of Giants is nowhere near as powerful, it's not even really necessary anymore. And with each patch throughout the game's extended life, it's only gotten better and better. Considering the fact that the early stages of the game aren't really that important anymore, it's still important to note I made an entire love letter to Dark Souls 3 in the form of Assassin Arts. It's basically a critique of the game from beginning to end, including all the patch updates. With that said, other types of playthroughs might be obsolete now, but considering the fact that I made the Assassin Arts series with a lot of foresight, it should still be relevant till this day. Now, there's a lot of jewels and mechanics that get discussed in that Let's Play / love letter that you probably will never see anywhere else. And that's likely because I was looking much deeper into the game than most other people, including most veterans. Considering the fact that a lot of the critiques about the game's early stages and flaws are pretty much gone now, Assassin Arts will likely survive the test of time, and it's also more of a proof stamp of what I was claiming in the very beginning. In my opinion, Dark Souls 3 is an excellent game now, with all of the changes that they made, From Software taking the time to do that. But the only thing standing in its way is, of course, the toxic player base. Man, am I gonna get a lot of hate for that. But it's true. It's true. So, we're gonna take a short break. I will be right back with the Shield Splitter podcast. I'm just gonna leave you with some amazing tunes, and we'll be right back.
Listen up, please!
Hey, listen!
Listen closely, approach me, sucker close me. Person tried to treat me like better than toast me, impossible. I cut a sucker in small chunks, make more rhymes than Michael Jordan makes slams. I'm slow, prerogative.
Listen up, please!
Hey, listen.
What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Shield Splitter podcast. To get into our main topic today, I want to talk a little bit about this thing called a combat deck. Now, for me, the combat deck is sort of like a throwback for when the create a fighter or create a character thing was popular. I think mostly made popular by the WWE games. This was sort of an era where you can create a fighter, select their moves, select their costumes, select how they look, their skin color, a bunch of little details, decals, tattoos, etc., etc. Sometimes you could even give your characters theme music or intros. The game Absolver seems to have taken this to new heights, where they have a combat deck with very specific things that moves do. Some moves have dodging properties, some moves have hyper armor. Some moves break guards, and some moves are strictly there to confuse your opponent. Either way, Absolver seems to have a really immersive, comprehensive combat deck feature that deserves a closer look. So let's take a look at it.
Combat is your art, and mastering the medium is essential to becoming an Absolver. Upon arriving in Adal, all prospects have a core combat style and an initial combat deck. On their path to absolution, prospects will learn new possibilities and mix them to create their own unique method of fighting. One of 3 combat styles are chosen at the beginning of your journey, but other styles exist in the world of Absolver. Each combat style improves specific character attributes and comes with its own unique special ability. Balanced and powerful, with the Forsaken style, prospects can parry enemy attacks, briefly stunning their opponent. Strong and resistant, practitioners of the cult method can absorb hits without being stunned or pushed back, and regain lost health if the counterattack is successful. The students of the Windfall combat style will have greater dexterity and will. They can avoid enemy attacks, leaving their enemies open to a powerful counter. The combat deck is the list of attacks that a prospect can use when fighting. These attacks are divided between 4 different stances, which represent the prospect's orientation relative to their target. In each stance, different attacks are available. Some attacks will naturally flow from one stance to another. Other attacks will stay in the same stance. Regardless, each move will always chain fluidly with one another, effortlessly shifting from stance to stance without interruption. The combat deck is fully customizable, allowing one to define their way of fighting and become unpredictable. In each of the 4 stances, prospects will choose a sequence of attacks and an alternative attack. Alternative attacks can be used at any time to break a sequence and bring the prospect in another stance. Both sequences and alternative attacks can be chained fluidly without interruption. To give more possibilities, new attacks can be unlocked by fighting against any kind of opponent, from the newest prospect to the strongest Absolver. Besides this, prospects can learn other combat styles by choosing a mentor and staying loyal to him or her. Prospects can choose mentors as they meet in the world. Through their loyalty, prospects can learn additional combat styles and use their mentor's combat deck. Steel yourself, dear prospect. Combat instincts may come natural, but refining your combat style and combat deck is key to both basic survival and victory in the lost lands of Adal.
All right, that wraps up today's podcast. If you like what you heard, like, share, tell a friend, but most of all, hit that subscribe button. This is a weekly podcast and always available for download. For more details, for anything that you might want to know, anything I might have missed, be sure to check the description or to leave a comment. That's all for today, folks, and I hope to see you next time. Later.